Aloha, my name is Garrett Ford, and this is my lecture on elementary Uvitonian epistles in my novel Theories of Reality and Theoretical Physics. This is a follow-up lecture to the brief overview I provided in the fundamentals of Iontian cosmology and Uvitonian epistles. However, this one will be diving a lot more in depth into the elementary concepts of Uvitonian epistles' model of reality. I hope you enjoy. First, I would like to introduce the main topics covered in this lecture. First, we'll be examining the three basic laws of metaphysics as proposed by Uviton. And we won't be looking at the zeroth law, nor will be looking at any of the caveats, as those will be explored in the advanced lecture. Next, we'll be looking at the four states of reality, which are you have your solid, your liquid, gas, and plasma, and the different states those each occupy and the special state that plasma occupies in this model. Next, we'll be looking at the interaction between the void and Pluva, and how those two interact to create reality. And so that's your creation and oblivion examination, as well as where dark matter and the concept of dark energy, dark and darker still. Energy, there we go. And then lastly, we'll be looking at, even though this model reality forbids physical time travel, how temporal manipulation may be possible through the use of a tachyon weir or other similar devices. And then finally, I'll be examining the status of this on our learning pyramid of the unknown known. And so the learning pyramid, I should have done this in the first lecture, but that was a bit scattered and I don't think I explained things very well. You have your known knowns, which is our Iontian cosmology. You have your unknown knowns, things you don't know that you know, and that's Uvitons. You have your known unknowns, which is your mythemite. And then you have your unknown unknowns, which is going to be your Geiges. And so these four different theories of reality, which will be making up the initial lecture series, are part of our learning pyramid. And so they may seem like completely different quadrants, and they very much are, but when you view them from the top, they are actually building towards a peak understanding of reality from that point. And so by building all four of these theories of reality, you are then able to perceive in a different way reality, as it were. So that's the kind of the idea with all of this, and that's your pyramid of learning. And so yes, these are going to be contradictory and often very disparate in their understandings of reality, but just as a brick on the opposite side is on the opposite side of the pyramid from the other, they are still building towards the same peak, which is an understanding of reality. So I hope everybody can enjoy that, and we'll get on with the lecture. First, it's important to understand the epistles in this model of reality. There's four states of reality with this. You have, first, you're going to have your solid, which is your past. You have your fluid, which is the present. You have your gas, which is the future. And then you have plasma, which occupies a special state of high energy matter and reality, which is perception. And so what we're doing with these it's going to be similar to the standard form of reality that everybody's familiar with, you know, the Big Bang and what have you, but it's tweaked in a way that makes it quite different. So what's happening is that you have your initial burst of plasma, moves out this way, you have your motes, they go into elements, the elements move into forms, and eventually those forms develop the ability to perceive. And so before that is perhaps perceived by God, if you believe in that sort of thing, but we'll just try to be agnostic as possible that perception is only beginning once we have beings such as ourselves, so sentient beings. So, hey! Anybody who likes Phoenician got that joke. Or Proto-Semitic, I guess. Anyways, so what you're having is you have this moving wave outwards from that central point, and as the wave of reality moves, it cools and becomes a solid. The past is your solid. You have a very thin, almost. There's a big debate here about whether or not it even exists. The present layer, which is your fluid, and then you have your gas, which is the future, right? And what's happening is you have as it's moving, it is perceived and it is given form through perception, right? And now this is where there's a lot of debate. You have your fatalist, you know, the determinists, versus you have the people that they believe in freedom, choice, right? And so this is that actually subliminates. Subliminates. I can't pronounce that. Subliminates. I don't get to talk to enough people to hear the words that I read, so sometimes I mispronounce things. So it subliminates from your solid to your gas and vice versa, right? And so, in which case, there is no free will. And that everything that has ever happened, including you sitting down and deciding to watch this weird video by this guy you've never heard of, is all been predetermined at the start of reality, like clockwork. Right? That's a clockwork, dear. Whereas people with freedom of choice believes you actually do have your fluid layer, and that is where you have your ability to have free will and make choices and decide to keep watching or shut it off right here because this is so offensive to your senses. So this is where people are like, yay, I can choose for myself. I have my own opinions on which one it probably is, but I want to be as objective as possible, so I'm not going to share them because I don't believe that beliefs actually shape reality in any sense or form. They're just beliefs in the same way that you can believe anything you want, but the truth may be very different from what is truly real. Anywho, so first you have these three states of matter plus the celestial state of plasma, and so what's happening is it's moving outwards in a wave from that central point. All the past is this solid, and then what's going to be happening is as it moves, it's constantly generating more past, more solid, until eventually the place where the central point was becomes a dark star. And that's your black hole. And so what I should pause for a moment here and explain some terminology. So you got your dark star, right? That's your black hole. And that's a place where the pressure from the surrounding temporal medium is pushed. All of the past is being pushed into this central point, and it's actually generating a singularity in the past, and it's now sucking the surrounding current reality into it. And so that's where our current black holes are from, is actually from the pressure of the pressure from the past, creating these pinpoints in reality. And then you also have what's called a white hole, but I actually prefer the term white bowl, because it would probably be more like a bowl when you observe it than a hole in space-time, because it's this constantly ejecting point in reality that's creating your pluva, right? So this is creating your voids. This is creating your pluva. And so the pluva is plurality, like all of everything that's being generated is coming from the white bowl, or the stark star, as I like to call them. Yeah, anybody waiting for Winds of Winter? I know I am. Anywho, so you have what's happening is it's becoming it becomes a dark star, and then everything is being pulled backwards into it, perhaps, or it's like ripples. You can look at it almost like ripples in a pond. In our reality, it's kind of like you have a constantly freezing lake. So you have a lake, and this is ice, and so hence the name Epistles, right? And you have a very thin edge of this constantly increasing lake or sphere of ice, whatever. It's an ice world, and so on the surface, there's constant condensation, and that condensation is from the gaseous reality surrounding it. And so the initial spark that melted all this water is incredibly hot, and it moves through, and it's way up here ahead of everything. And so it's that initial spark, but also in the minds of perceptive beings like yourself, that is also part of the plasma, right? So you have that's almost like your God, which is all of everything, or your Pluva, which is that initial. It can be, that plasma energy that's it's the initial burst from your white bowl that is being created, the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it, and it moves outwards, generating this immense field of heat and light and everything that was anything. And then as it moves away, you're left with that's your void, and well, not your void really, but your gas that then condenses into a fluid and then freezes into forms, creating the past. And now this is where people can get into debates, is whether or not is reality one explosion? Are we all from just this one? Was there a Big Bang, or was there maybe multiple? And what reality is actually your interaction between these plasma waves and these waves of fluid, and it's as they all escape from the expanding void behind them. And what happens is the void this dark star, it's going to be absorbing until eventually it will actually convert into a Stark star and vice versa. But this is over cosmic timelines, which makes your it'd be in spans of yugas if you're familiar with Hinduism. So it's like the night and the day. So it's like a sunrise, sunset, and all of reality is, thawed and dethawed and made into nothing and then remade through the epistles. And so reality might be like an intersection of multiple big bangs and multiple these just giant explosions of Pluva that generate all of reality. And so Pluva is your kind of your raw creative energy, where your void is that nothingness that is pulled into a singularity, right? And or it also might be that the void is actually right behind you a moment ago, and everything is actually just on a razor's edge. So you have void, and then Pluva, and then you have basically just 3 hairline strands that are being annihilated and created as they are perceived, right? So behind you, you've got the solid. You maybe, if you believe that you have free will, whatever you believe, you have your fluid layer, and then you have your gas, and it's just a strand of reality, like a thread of fate almost, that is being woven between the void and Pluva, and the void is constantly annihilating everything and then exploding and creating another thread, right? And then same with the Pluva is constantly creating until eventually it is buried beneath its weight of creation, and it collapses, and then it annihilates as well. And so it's like almost like a you have maybe 3 vibrating strings or 4 vibrating strings, huh? And our experience of it is we're just kind of in a cosmic song, a 4-string. Apparently God plays bass. Has a bass guitar 4 or 3? I don't know. I don't play guitar. I don't know any instruments. Anywho, so that's kind of your basics of your epistles and how it all works together. So as you can see, there's a lot of overlap and stuff that you've probably already seen with our current understanding of reality. And so that's how it all is interacting with what we know and what we don't know. So on to the next slide. So now that we've discussed the epistles, I'm going to examine the Uvitonian laws of metaphysics. So first, you've got the first law, first things first. And so what you have here is that reality is made causal through sentient observation. And so what Uviton is looking at here is you are existing inside actually a bubble that is heated by the plasma of your mind, and that is actually thawing the solid past that depending on how you're looking at how time works, where you are in the wave relative to somebody else, your perception around you is actually kind of heating and generating your causality, right? So if time is flowing this way, because we're clockwise, right? You have your chair that is, you can perceive it before you perceive the chair. It is these motes of whatever, of a causal matter, and then you perceive it is made into a causal chair. The chair gets old, the chair breaks. Oh no, my chair is broken. And then you can repair the chair, or maybe you throw out the chair and you get a new chair. But whatever the case is, your sentient observation is generating that causal relationship with your matter. and everything outside of it, sort of like your double slit experiments, right? So, you know, that's your anybody. It's that pay, huh? And then you've got and then you've got your double split when it's being observed, and suddenly the wavelength takes a form, right? So as we looked at in the last slide, reality, if it's moving out in this wavelength form, we're all being carried along in this kind of a temporal medium, whatever that is. But that's because we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll wait till the second law. So second law, causal reality is subject to entropy, and that's generated by the observer at a rate equal to the surrounding temporal medium. Right, and so the temporal medium is it can vary, right? So maybe you might look at it, it perhaps is going to be a wave that's moving outwards from that initial spark, or it's a wave like tied in, tied out, because time moving forwards or backwards, it makes no actual distance except for the direction your clock on the wall is going to go, clockwise or counterclockwise. And so if we're actually flowing backwards already to the end of the universe or towards the start, we won't actually know that until that event happens. And if you're around to actually experience it, who knows? So that's a temporal medium, is the wave, right? So reality moving in kind of that fluid wave away from that central point and that constant dethawing and what have you. And so that entropy is what is causing those motes to go from a high energy gas that has no form into a solid. And whether or not there is free will or the ability to, like you have your Heisenberg uncertainty principle, right? That's generating that, when we are watching something, there's that variance, right? Of when it's the observed versus the unobserved. So when the gas perhaps is, maybe it's not a chair for you, or maybe it's a nicer chair. Maybe you have a really comfy human scale chair, right? Or maybe you've got an old green grungy Chesterfield like easy chair, right? And so what's going to be changing there is that's that perception piece is whether or not that's happening, right? Anyway, so you are perceiving, you are the observer, and the temporal medium is generating that you are causing the entropy, but it's at a rate equal to the medium around it, which is going to be your speed of light, perhaps, or the cosmic medium. And I talked about this briefly in the other lecture, but so light speed, that's your what is it? 299 meters per second, roughly. And then your cosmic medium is you've got your empty space is not actually empty. It's actually full of bosons and quarks and what have you. And then let's say you have water, and that is that's of course full of particles of water. In the same way, that's what your cosmic, your temporal medium is going to be, is similar to the cosmic medium around you, right? And so temporal medium, of course, is referring to what time is moving through, and so or being kind of perceived through. So if you have your causal reality, your chair, is being perceived, by an observer who, let's say, is they're observing it in a temporal medium that is harsher so like the void, you have a higher void around it or higher Pluva, it's the rate of entropy is different. But it's based on the temporal energy that you are around too. So your own perception of time moving forwards or backwards. And time is being generated by all this forwards or backwards. And it doesn't make, like I said before, it doesn't make much difference which way it's going, except that the entropy is going to be going either way. Yeah. And entropy may function differently in a universe going backwards, because we perceive entropy as the loss of energy. But I mean, if we are, if we suddenly switch gears and time starts reversing, then be like, oh, this is so terrible. What can we do to stop these pieces of U-235 from increasing in size? Because I mean, that's entropy suddenly, because it's eventually it's going to get to a place where our ground just starts blowing up or something. I don't know. Anywho, yeah. So that's that. Next is so causal matter that escapes the temporal medium is subject to liminal drag and annihilated. Thus, unperceived matter is acausal, cannot interact with causal matter, and not subject to entropy. So this is basically that you have your wave. And that is your temporal medium is kind of the wavelength that we're being pushed along, if you want to look at it like that, or it's the strings that are kind of vibrating in tune. Vibing wave. And so whatever is going to be happening here is, of course, it can, if you have your causal matter that's been perceived, that chair, if you try to send that chair backwards through time, the liminal drag annihilates it before it can actually escape. And so that's that transitive piece. So whether that's because we have void, like nipping at our heels as we speak, or if it's because the resistance to overcome it, it creates, it just turns it back into unperceived particles, we don't know. And that's why this is all really quite interesting stuff to look into, is what have you. But basically, this is all about that you cannot send any causal matter backward in time. So there is no physical time travel in this model. It is impossible. So yeah, don't even try. Yeah, that's the laws of the metaphysics here, and yeah, that's we'll leave that slide. So what we have in this one, this slide, is we're going to be discussing void versus Pluva, right? So you've got your void, right? And that's your dark star. And then you've got your Pluva, which is from your white bull, dark star, whatever you want to call it. Black hole, there we go. And so what we're doing with this one is is to just understand. So you have your you have that initial explosion, and also like with this, it's constantly giving out reality, right? It's constantly creating more Pluva, that plurality from it. And so if this is the kind of the heart of a new universe, it's kind of like a cosmic egg, or kind of like almost a god, the egg of God. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's going to be giving out everything, and everything that comes from it. Everything is coming from that white bull, right? And as it's going outwards, the Pluva is you have it moving into your solid, fluid, and your gas, right? And it's constantly making different waves. And so each wave might actually just be another universe behind it. And so it might, if it's, depending on how you want to look at how this all works, it might just be, all the alternate realities based on how much energy is in that wave, right? So if we want to look at, our 4 waves, we'll give a nod to Hinduism because I do like it if somebody can't tell. So you get your 4 yugas, your first wave, create a very high energy, that's gods and, mighty epics, right? Then you've got your Dvapara. I can't pronounce any of this. Again, I don't talk to people enough, or hear people talk about it enough to be able to pronounce any of this. So hopefully I'm not making anybody upset with my poor English. And so that's your, your heroes, right? And you got your Treta, and then right before the collapse back into a dark star, you've got your Kali. Oops. Right? Which is spelled actually different than the god of destruction, but it sounds and what have you the same. So yeah. Anywho, so that might be what's happening is you have your outward waves of different energies that the Pluva, that matter that can become anything, or that reality, whatever you want to call it, the particular particles that are able to be perceived into any form, whether it's a chair or a house or a tree or a person, whatever it is, the Pluva can be perceived into any form. And in each wave, it might, maybe it's giving off less. I don't know, but I just think that's an interesting little side point of, perhaps, there is some way to kind of make sense of all that. So because we know that all systems degrade over time, and so perhaps you have 4 kind of universes. You got your best, the crit, so to speak, for your D20 fans, a natural 20, or I guess a natural 1 if you're if you're Thaco and Waco. And then you've got your 2 so-so, right? You're decent, and then your worst throw. This one, and this one's still good, and this one is still made it, right? But anywho, you have that moving outward. So then you got your void, right? And so this depends. It could be actually, these voids are created by interacting waves of multiple white bulls, right? It's creating so much pressure from all this reality that it bursts and sucks everything in, right? And creates a void, or it could also be, the weight of the past, right? So you've got your, so I talked about earlier, your dark matter is actually, it's gravity exerted by matter in the past, and your dark energy might, and this one I'm not sure, it can go either way. It could be either like the friction, generated by matter moving into the past, or it actually is that initial spark of plasma, right? And that's why when you look at those things of like that big pie chart everybody's seen, where it's like, oh, this much of reality, or whatever is, your dark energy, and then your dark matter, and then your whatever matter, right? regular matter. The reason is because your initial spark of that plasma is so incredibly hot, but it's in the future relative to us. And so as we are moving towards it, that spark of energy is still out there, right? And so that's influencing the temperature and heat of the universe. That's that. Maybe it's our CMB. Is kind of like the when you get it when somebody takes a picture with a flash, and it leaves the kind of the tingly doopies in your eyes, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they're called. The dancing kind of dark. Maybe it's that piece. So this one's this one's a bit tricky, but I feel like perhaps dark matter is our past, and the more dark matter is generated, the more time that passes, the more the wave moves, the more solid past is generated, thus the more dark matter, and thus that's why these galaxies don't seem like they should exist, because the matter that you're looking for that should make them is no longer able to be perceived. It's now acausal, and you can't observe it anymore. But your gravity is still there. But yes, and this is where the trick is, that gravity is not matter, and that the causal matter is not being interacted with the acausal, right? Because your acausal is like this unperceived field of motes until we see it, and then it becomes a chair. Yeah, so that's the void in the Pluva. I think I've kind of explained it as much as I would like to for this. So yeah, that's slide. All right, this is what everybody's been waiting for. This is the temporal manipulation slide. So as I said at the start, yeah, you can't send any matter backwards through time with this model of reality, simply because it's going to be immediately annihilated by the liminal drag, right? So you build your little time machine, and you get your very brave guy who's an astronaut, and he went to space college, and he's happy, and his mom's there too. And she goes, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." And he hops inside the time machine, and they try to get it to go beyond the speed of the temporal medium. And it's instantly annihilated. And it probably causes a massive explosion. So, which is good, because then she doesn't have to grieve because she dies too. So that's temporal manipulation. You cannot physically time travel with Uvitonian's model of reality. It is impossible. So yeah, that's that piece. So you cannot physically, but this is where there's some interesting leeway with certain things with different technologies that it's not going to be interacting with matter, but you can still influence reality. So let's say you create a tachyon weir, right? And so what this is going to be doing is you're going to be slowing down these backwards moving particles from the future, and you are going to encode information on them. And so you're not actually stopping them, because you cannot actually stop them, but you can slow it down by putting it through a tachyon weir. And so what you do is you slow it down enough, you put on your information. So let's say you want to send a message into the past, which is, I'll just use that's a reality is a hologram, and time is illusion, by gold by, right? So it's our Bill cipher. No Gravity Falls fans, eh? Anyways, so you have your message you want to send to the past, and you put that into that tachyon, and then you're going to be firing it backwards with a massive amount of energy. So that's your plasma. And what this does is it actually is going to your weir is going to be slowing it down, and then you're targeting it and firing it probably through what I like to affectionately call a silver key. And so it's going to be a kind of an accelerator that allows you to supercharge that tachyon and fire it backwards. At a targeted person in space-time, right? And so now the problem with this, of course, is that you're firing blind. This is the equivalent of going out in a space and shooting a pistol, or more like maybe I don't know, maybe firing a pistol at night into the air with a message on it and hoping it hits the right gets to the right person. So it is pretty insane. But the thing is, you might not be able to send anything physically, but we know that your plasma, the heat of that, the energy there, is going to be able to move backwards in time and de-thaw the target that is hit for their lifetime or however long, and allow the person that's being de-thawed using this, because they've been frozen, right? And this only works, of course, if we're not instantly annihilated by a void that's at the very edge of with the strings, right? So if we're just 4 vibrating strings and God's playing bass, then this doesn't work. But if this is the frozen sea, then yeah, it's going to work, because what you're doing is you're basically firing an artillery shell. It hits a spot that's already been frozen. It's de-thawing that person, giving them a message, and then they're going to be able to carry that message out or whatever, right? And so the thing is, it is firing it blind. So that's why I would say we would need something that is going to attract the bullet, so to speak. You need a magnet. And so that's why I mean, in my first video, I talk about, you're not going to be firing lead, though, because lead's not magnetic. But anyways, you get my understanding, what I'm trying to say. So magnet, bullet, right? So in my first video, I talked about this briefly, is I think that maybe an MRI machine might be able to be used to capture the information, right? And so, because then it's going to be creating kind of like that vortex of gravity, right? And so instead of just you're firing blind into nothing, I mean, that gravity of that MRI being activated is going to maybe be able to have that person receive, a whatever message, right? And so, I mean, I don't know how this would work ethically. I mean, and furthermore, I mean, how it would even work. So once the thing is, so once you send out this, you hit this person, with this message, right? And now their life is changed, and they perceive matter around them and make new forms, and the new reality is constructed around them. Is that generating a new wave outwards, in which case you're going to be still pushed by your temporal medium, right? And that means you'll never actually be affected by the effects of this time travel, right? Because or this temporal manipulation, because you're not actually traveling. So because the wave would still be pushing you along, and so if you are in reality, you want to change something in reality A, and so you fire backwards from A, and you want to make it into B. So now the thing is, B has been made, but B is also pushing the B timeline around it, and therefore you in A never get to see what you've done in the past. So, it's terribly, fatalistic, again, because it basically reinforces that you can't actually manipulate the past at all. And so that's kind of the grim reality of it, is that you would be, in the model that this works in, it hasn't, you are still unable to affect your past because of the frozen sea, right? It's you're being pushed along with that wave. And so it really would beg the question of, why would you bother trying to construct your tachyon where you're charging up the tachyon in that silver key apparatus and firing it backwards towards somebody that could be influenced. I mean, maybe if you were like really altruistic, so like you want to make some guy who was a painter, or a failed painter into a successful one, so that he doesn't do something terrible. That might be a thing, but I mean, I don't really see much application for it, because anybody that would be maybe if you're really altruistic, I guess you'd be trying to manipulate the time with this model, in this model, because you'd be like, well, this, even though whatever, their life was so terrible, let's fire this thing backwards in time to try and get them. But I mean, even then, I mean, it's only going to be limited to people that have been in an MRI machine. And I mean, you're going to have to look at, okay, so how many people make history? And that's not a lot. And then how many people have an MRI? And so that's your Venn diagram, right? So it's going to have to be MRI and important, because you could maybe you send somebody a message from the future, everybody, that you just try and shoot it at everybody who's ever had an MRI. But I mean, how many people are going to come out and be like, oh yeah, I had weird thoughts when I was in there? So again, sorry, I had to take a drink of water. Should have paused for that. Again, it really would beg the question of the why would you try, because it seems like it probably wouldn't work. And I mean, yeah, maybe you could supercharge it so that you wouldn't need, or if you maybe in the future we could get so accurate with time mapping that we'll get into that in a bit, that you are able to target somebody who's just walking along and suddenly they see a light in the sky and they have a hallucination or whatever it is. But who knows, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's a very, very interesting one, right? So I don't know how a lot of this. I don't know if temporal manipulation would work at all, but this is just the only way that I've been able to speculate you might be able to manipulate the past using this model of reality. All right, now one of the things that probably stands out in here is there's a lot of uncertainty. This is not a nailed down theory. It never will be, because this is all about the unknown knowns. So things that we don't know that we actually know. And that's why a lot of it, I'm like, well, maybe it's string theory. So maybe we already know it. It's string theory. Maybe it's the wavelength, right? Maybe it's the frozen sea. Maybe it's the void and Pluva piece that I pointed out, right? We don't know. And we probably won't know for a long time, and maybe we never will, because again, when we look at our pyramid of learning here, our known is already occupied by Yantian cosmology, and this is over here in the unknown knowns. So unless we have some fundamental shift, a fundamental shift in understanding, that I don't think that's going to change. And also, it doesn't need to, because again, you know, we're just looking at different ways to look at a pyramid, and whatever perspective you're looking at a pyramid from, you're going to have a shadowed side. So, and I'll get into this in later lectures, but because this is the first of 4, but there's actually, you have your pyramid thus, but you also have your inverted pyramid as well below. So you actually have 8 theories that I've been working on total, but I'm only going to be looking at the first 4 in these lectures. So yeah. Anywho, back to temporal mapping. I mentioned that earlier, so I just wanted to briefly touch on this. I'm going to go in more when I do the advanced. But so this is the idea that if we are in one of those things that allows for, so you have your wave, your frozen sea, or this one, those ones would allow you to actually map the past as in the same way that we map. So you've got a mountain range, you know, and that's Alberta, USA, this is BC, Saskatchewan, that's Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. What a fun thing to say. And so you have a map here, right? So now if you looked at reality as an ever unfurling map that you're constantly unrolling, and let's say you're looking at like you're flying over reality. So the Saskatchewan is the past, and BC is the future, and you are here. You'd be able to maybe calculate where you'd have to perhaps fire that tachyon through that weir and encode it so that it's going to hit the right spot, and that's going to be generated by, so you have the speed of your temporal medium is going to come into play with this, and so that's the wave that's generating reality. So let's pretend that, you know, that's the wave, right? And so as we are moving in our vessel, we are able to perceive the landscape around us and below us, and it is we are the only thing that is moving. The landscape is moving past us. We are either we are stationary or everything is moving. So again, another contradiction. I don't know which one it's going to be. Who knows? Nobody knows. Wow, that's a lot to take in, isn't it? So yeah, but yeah, that's about it really. Yeah, I'll move on to the end there. All right, thank you for joining me. We covered a lot of things today. We looked at the epistles, and you know, it's the 3 states of Pluva, as I call it, right? Which is our reality as it is, and you have your gas, your liquid, solid, and that special plasma, right? So, you know, maybe that's that whole legend of Prometheus, right? You know, he steals the fire and gives sentience. So maybe that was the first time travel. I don't know. Anyways, just fun speculation there. Or not time travel, time manipulation, because you can't travel. Have machine, can't travel. So next is we looked over the laws ever so briefly, and we'll look at the zeroth and the caveats in the advance, but we looked at the first, second, and third, and so that's the third is the novel annihilation, First is perception, and then the second is entropy. And then we looked at void and Pluva, and how that all interacts. And we have our white bowl and our dark star, and how they are perhaps interacting, and what have you. And then we just talked a little bit just a moment ago about our unknowns, the things we don't know that we know. I think that's a really interesting thing, because I mean, sometimes you know something and you don't realize it. It's like the Zorro paradox, right? You know, you go into the place, you don't know, oh, who did this? You do all this studying, and you do the fingerprints, and you do everything you can, and you look around for all the different evidence you can. It's searching up and down, and then when you stand up and you're going home to leave the room, you notice there's a giant Z carved in the wall, right? And so, yeah, that's that kind of that unknown knowns, things we don't know that we actually know. Yeah. And now you can tune out here, because I'm just actually going to talk about myself for a little bit. So yeah, feel free to shut off the video at this point, because I'm just going to ramble for a little bit. Okay, let's talk about me. My name is Garrett Ford. I hope you like this video. I hope it's improving from my initial ones. These theories that I've come up with, they're a bit scattered. I apologize. And I know I mispronounce words sometimes. So I just I want to ask for your understanding that yeah, thank you. I also I'm going to talk about, what am I going to do? I'm going to do anime, a film, a game. Oh, and I'll talk about some more books I like. We'll do horror, fantasy, and romance. Yeah. And then we'll also talk about a flower I like, flavor, and then something I like to do for fun. So let me think. What can I put in here? So anime, game, film. Yeah, so first, an anime I really like, let me think, was, Ghost Stories. I actually just rewatched that. I feel like everybody should watch Ghost Stories. Well, maybe not everybody, because it's so offensive, but it looks like a classic 90s anime. But when they did the dub, it's like the best dub ever. It makes South Park look pretty tame by comparison, but it's hilarious. It is so funny. It's one of my favorite comedies, and sometimes if I'm feeling down, that one lifts me right back up. And so I watched that this last weekend, because I was feeling a bit down. And then another film I really like. Let me think. Maybe I'll skip that one for now. I'll go back to it. Games I like. I really enjoy. I like Path of Exile. That one's pretty fun. Even though it's kind of like this, mindless click fest, and I always basically play the same character of a necromancer witch. I really find it quite fun, because it's so unique, and you can do so many different builds. Even though I usually don't make more than one build, and my computer is on the fritz right now, so I actually haven't been able to play it since the new patch came out. But yeah, I really like Path of Exile. It's actually quite good, quite well done. And I think it's a better and a good heir to the throne, because the Diablo games are just terrible these days. And I've stopped giving them my money. Blizzard has kind of fallen out of my good graces. But I really like Path of Exile, and it's quite fun, quite a fun game. And then a horror book I really like. Let me think. I'll skip that one for now. Fantasy, though, I really, I know, horror. I like, actually, I'm going to count manga. Oh, maybe I'll talk about manga today. Remina. Oh, wow. If you haven't read Junji Ito, I don't talk to people, like I said, so it's hard for me to know how some of this is pronounced. It's incredible, really great manga. Really dark and gross, and like he did a great job. Great job. Brilliant job. Oh, I know, film. Um, Repo Man, but not the opera thing. I'm talking about Emilio Estevez, and that's the guys repossessing cars, and it's hilarious. It is a laugh riot. It is so well done. Like, it's unbelievable that, I don't know why it doesn't get more attention these days. It's just a movie I can watch again and again. And it's really funny, really well done. You notice something new each time you watch it. Like plate of shrimp. Anywho, that's that one. And then manga, fantasy. I really like Ghost in the Shell. I actually have all of Ghost in the Shell. And I really enjoy that. I think it's a really good fantasy series. I mean, yeah, again, it's fantasy, sci-fi. It's all the same to me. So, I mean, I'm putting it in. Maybe we need to make a new term so people don't get so confused. Like, fi fantasy. I don't know. Sci fancy. I don't know. Anyways, I'm just goofing around, being funny. Anywho, yeah, Ghost in the Shell, really good, really interesting stuff. The anime is actually really good too. I really liked it. I didn't like the latest dub they released because there were some bugs at the dub, but yeah, if you can get your hands on the anime and the series, it's one of my favorites. And I actually used to watch all of it. I have a really dear friend that I've moved away. I don't get to see them, but I talk to them a fair bit. But it was one of our big bonding exercises. We watched all of Ghost in the Shell together, and it's a very fond memory I hold near and dear to my heart. So that's one of my favorite fantasies. And then romance. Actually, I do like romance, but this one, it was How to Lose a Time War. And this one is very good. It's like science fiction, but it's romance, and it's loving, and it's like I listened to the audiobook for it. I don't usually read that very much fiction unless it's manga in paperback, but I do listen to tons of audio books just because I usually like reading reference books. Like, I can read a textbook or an encyclopedia on something, but I struggle to read fiction in paperback, which is funny because I write fiction on paperback, but I don't read it very much. I do like to listen to it. I like the experience of somebody telling me a story. Yeah, but yeah, How to Lose a Time War is it's really well done, incredibly fun, incredibly creative, and also it's brief. It's nice. Its brevity is the soul of wit. So that's nice. I like that. And now next is another flower that I like. Oh, I like sunflowers, actually. They are wonderful. I think everybody would be a bit happier in this world if we all spent a bit more time looking at life in terms of how sunflowers do things. It's like, which way is the sun? Let's get ourselves in the sun. Let's follow the sun. Sun is good. Like sun. Sun. So sunflowers, they're fun. sun and the fun. And then let me see, a favorite flavor. I like Cool Ranch Doritos. Oh, those are a delight to the senses. Wowee. They are so tasty. You know, I can't even believe, I don't know how they came up with that flavor, but I don't actually even let myself buy it that often because they're just too good. So I try to almost deny myself that thing. And now another thing I like to do for fun. Oh, let me see. I'm trying to. I had an accident some years back, and I really struggle with. I busted my hand. I have nerve damage on my writing hand. So I am actually learning to draw again. And so I actually have been having a lot of fun trying to learn to draw and doing art again because I actually had stopped after I had my accident and I just kind of it is yeah. I mean you can see my writing everywhere and how bad that is. When I was teaching at the university, I was infamous for having terrible words writing. So that's a minimum. uh, so yeah, but yeah, no, so I'm learning to draw again, and that's been really fun. I bought some art supplies, and I got some books on drawing, and that's been really fun because I kind of want to try to draw my own covers one day for my books, and because I like writing, like I said in my last one, but yeah. Anywho, that's about it. So thanks for tuning in to this lecture on Uvitonian Epistles model, and as always, will be seeing you.